So I saw an article the other day where Jeff Glover was talking about how jiu-jitsu black belts are useless nowadays because people get them just for showing up. And Jeff Glover's a very high-level grappler. He has a bunch of different accolades to his name. So it's not like he doesn't know what he's talking about. Obviously, someone should be good at jiu-jitsu if they're going to get a black belt. I'm not saying anyone should be handing them out willy-nilly like that. However, I think that Jeff might be a little bit poisoned by the position that he holds in the grappling world, if I'm just being honest with you. When I first got into jiu-jitsu, it was still kind of looked at as something you did to get ready for MMA by most people, and now it's got its own little ecosystem with its own stars like Jeff and other dudes like Gordon Ryan, John Danaher. Obviously, this is very good for the sport itself, but I think it's bad in certain other ways, including the elitism that has kind of formed around these stars. These guys are already in a bubble as is, and it doesn't help that everybody outside of that picks their favorite guy to form a cult of personality around. And of course, these things are going to go to their heads. These guys got to realize that not everyone's going to be a top tier competitor. And I mean, if everybody was, then nobody would be, because their elite would just be the norm. It'd be completely normal. And in addition to that, they also got to remember they would get creamed in MMA fights, which is why they don't bother with it. So if a jiu-jitsu black belt isn't going to represent high-level competition or even competition as a whole, what does it represent? Well, the way it was explained to me and a bunch of other people that I know, it's meant to represent technical understanding and proficiency. That's what it was always meant to be. It was never about how many golds you got at the ADCC competition or the Pan Ams or the whatever. It was always about whether or not you actually know what you're doing. I've competed in a couple of tournaments in my life, and each time I showed up, lost in the first round, and then that was the day for me. I just spent the rest of the day supporting my teammates, and that's because I don't really care about jiu-jitsu competition. I got to be honest with you. When I got into jiu-jitsu, I was doing so because I wanted to do MMA, because I wanted to be as complete of a fighter as I could be, and I'm not interested in the guard pulling game, 50-50, all this stuff that you see in pure jiu-jitsu. And I don't know, like maybe Jeff Glover would think that I'm not actually a brown belt with 4 stripes. Maybe he would think I'm just not that good and I don't deserve it. But the fact of the matter is, I've been in fights. What has Jeff Glover been in? He's been in nothing. I have my one win in MMA, I'm 1-2, is a submission victory. What do you want? The understanding is what the belt is supposed to represent. And I think as time has gone on, people are starting to understand less and less, because you're seeing things that, sure, it might work in a jiu-jitsu competition, but I would never, ever in a million years want to ever try that against somebody who's throwing punches at me. Even if they're not trained in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I'd rather not get my face smashed in before I end up hitting a triangle choke or an armbar or whatever on somebody. It's not fun. My goal is to be as safe in a fight as I possibly can be. And a lot of these new guards and things that I'm seeing pop up, they just won't keep you safe. So I'm currently a 4-stripe brown belt, and I remember about a year and a half ago when I got that thing, I was thinking, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I felt ready for my blue belt and my purple belt, but like, I don't know if I deserve this right now. I think a month or two after I got my brown belt, something just happened. A switch got flipped. Something just clicked, and all of a sudden, I just knew things. I'm not saying I knew everything. I don't know everything. You know, I'm constantly learning still to this day, but there was just this weird explosion of understanding that I had, where you could put me in a position and I could think my way out of it using things that I was never taught, that I never saw on a YouTube video or anything like that. All of a sudden, I just had an understanding that I did not have before. And that's when I really started feeling like a brown belt, was when I started noticing that little difference in my game. And I think that that is enough, if I'm being honest with you. I'm not some high level competitor. I'm not gonna be a high level competitor, and I'm not interested in being one of those things. However, my ability to understand and execute these things, and then also to teach them to other people, is what qualifies me to have the 4 stripes on my brown belt right now. And that's just the way that I feel about it. So the last thing I think I'll say before I go is that even high level grappling is not as much predicated on the act of grappling as you might think. Now, obviously, it's not like they're knitting in there. Grappling is a gigantic part of it. It's the biggest part of it. However, with that said, it goes beyond that too. You have to make the choice to want to become a high level grappler, and then you have to live that lifestyle. It's a lifestyle at the end of the day. And I'm not saying it's an easy choice to make. If it was easy, anyone would do it. Everyone would do it, right? But there are aspects of it that go with it that if you don't do, you're not going to become a high level grappler. Therefore, you can't allow high level grappling to be something that determines whether or not somebody actually deserves a black belt. I used to train with someone who was extremely talented. They won an under 18 world championship, and when they graduated high school, they wanted to go and try and make jiu-jitsu what they do, and because of that they moved down to Florida. They started doing steroids, like clearly, obviously, plain as day. They started doing steroids. They didn't have a job. They just worked out all day, and that's just their life. That's what they did. If you're not going to take it to that level, you're not going to be able to be as good as a Jeff Glover or a Gordon Ryan or that person that I used to train with. It's just not going to happen. So it's a situation where if you're going to use high level grappling, if you're going to use tournament grappling as sort of like a benchmark to determine whether or not somebody is good, it's not really fair. Because me personally, I don't want to ruin my body with steroids. I'm all set with that. I think I'm all set. I don't want it that bad. I don't want to be a high level grappler in the first place. I don't want to be so good at jiu-jitsu that I'm bad at fighting. So I think I'll just skip all the steroids and certain other aspects of that life that are kind of dirty, if we're being honest here. I think I'm all set with that. But overall, grappling is more important than just competition. I think it can be a really important thing, and I think everybody should compete. And when I get my black belt, I'm going to try and compete again at least once, because why not? It'd be a really good experience. But the idea that somebody has to constantly be competing, and that's going to be the most important aspect of their promotion, it's just off the mark, in my opinion. There's no reason for that, you know? People have lives outside of jiu-jitsu. People are doing things other than trying to get ready for whatever competition is coming up. People have things that they don't want to get hurt for. Now, obviously, Jeff Glover knows what he's talking about. I'm not trying to argue that he's a rube. He has no clue. But I think that he is a little bit off the mark, if I'm just being honest. And I think there's a lot of people out there who probably hype him up into believing that he matters more than he actually does. It is what it is. You know, you're going to believe whatever you want to believe. There's no real standardized criteria for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that can be a good thing and a bad thing. But everybody's going to get what they want at the end of the day, because everyone's just going to look for what they want, and they're going to end up finding it because somebody will end up giving it to them. So it is what it is. You know, it is what it is. I just wanted to make this video because I've noticed this increased discourse among the jiu-jitsu guys, the guys who are too afraid to get punched in the face, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit. But that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and also sub for more. If you have anything to say, leave a comment down below. And I also have a Patreon. It's $5 a month for exclusive content as well as early access to videos just like this one. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. And until next time, good luck out there.